Welcome back to Melisia Talks, where we talk all things uniquely you, the Summer Sizzle edition, and it has been on fire. Now, great people, if you have not listened to the previous episodes, not last week because I was out of town celebrating my 20th year anniversary with my husband. So there was no recording podcast before or during that time frame. So either way, but that will eventually lead into our topic for today. But the previous week, ladies, I discussed hot hair. And you need to be mindful of the fact that it's the summertime and many of us are natural out here and we're trying to make sure we just get through the next day with these natural styles. And so be sure to tune into that episode. I promise you, you will enjoy it. And then previously, before that, I discussed our point of view with my youngest son and our trip to Epic Universe. So please be sure to listen and go back and just enjoy that. All right. So moving into today and our topic, it is Cruise Chronicles. Now, I just said that I was celebrating my 20th year anniversary with my husband last week. So there was no podcast episode that was released. But I just want to talk about, and this wasn't our first cruise. So we've been on multiple cruises, with multiple cruise lines, only two, Norwegian and Royal Caribbean. And we do plan to, although we think we've kind of settled in with Royal Caribbean because we've done the most with them and we have these points that we're building up. But I do, and we will still try some others. We met a lot of people on this cruise that had not, cruised Royal Caribbean before, but they had cruised Carnival. So I was like, okay, they did have some pros and cons for both, and so just to hear that, we were like, okay, maybe we will give, Carnival Cruise a try. And even we're still thinking about Virgin Cruises, which is said to be more for the grown and sexy crowd, So we are debating our next cruise. Will it be, with Royal Caribbean again, or will we kind of venture out just to see what the other cruise lines have to offer? And knowing us, we're most likely going to venture out. Okay. Now, moving into this topic, Cruise Chronicles, and this will be also go into next week. Now, great people, from start to finish, we do understand the process of preparing for a cruise, right? You have to obviously book it after you've done your research on, where you're going to go, different things like that. One thing that this time I did not take into consideration, which I will moving forward, is the actual ship. And I'll get into that. So we cruised on the Enchantment of the Seas with Royal Caribbean. And we had done previous ones, but this was the first one that was one of the smaller ships. And and I'm just going to say, I took the time to be very invested in the different ships after I experienced something on this ship. So we stopped by the next cruise desk. If you've been on Royal Caribbean, they have this next cruise desk. And we always go to it to see what's coming up. And so we went by and the gentleman, gave me this long sheet that has every voyage cruise or every cruise ship and what it falls under on it. I was so excited about this document, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, because it lets you know the smaller ships and how many years it has been sailing. It also lets you know the amount of people on the ship and so forth. Its maiden voyage, which is the first time it's sailed, and then also when it was revitalized. And so this cruise ship was one of those cruise ships that was an older one, and it was revitalized, I think in 2021 it said. But there were just some things that were different from the previous ones that we have been on, which were considered to be the mid size ships to where we have at least 4,000 people on the ship. This one had about 2,300 people on the ship. So with that being said, you saw everybody over and over and over again. And it's so funny because we were just like, wait a minute. I mean, the way it's set up, it's beautiful. They have a great setup. All of the main events are right there in the center. of everything. So I was used to that if I wanted to do like a Zumba class or something, it wouldn't be right there where everybody can come to from the fifth floor, eighth floor, you name it, and just look down and see everything that I'm doing. If I'm messing up or doing it right, I did not want to have eyes on me for every little thing that I wanted to sign up for, such as those things. And it was really interesting. But, so we did book our room, and we always do balcony rooms now. We got a suite and everything. And of course, for whatever reason, this time I did not look into the fact that where we were above us was an area of the cruise ship that is said to be, it's the area where they go and they have like food. You can come, to get food. It's late night area. It's the latest area. It stays open until like 1 a.m. And then of course they're cleaning afterwards. And guess what, good people? They close at 1. Guess when I heard all of the cleaning happening all night. It was crazy. And if anybody knows me, I am a light sleeper. And I'm like, Lord, help me, please. But I enjoyed this cruise to the utmost. But this was the only downfall. And, I've never experienced it on any other cruise ship. And so maybe it's because it's an older ship. I don't know. Yes, I did, of course, bring it to the attention of guest services. The second time, which was our last night, they finally sent somebody up to kind of hear what I was hearing. And he was like, oh, okay. And, there was nobody across the hall from us, which is where the interior rooms were. And it literally sounded like it was from our bathroom on over that way, just dragging things across the floor, you name it. And so we did get compensated, pretty well they covered literally everything that our balance that was left. So thank God for that. Sometimes you're like, okay, this was the not so good thing about it. But then in the end, to not have to pay any of the charges that we actually accrued on the cruise was a blessing. So it's unfortunate that it had to come this way, but it did. With my lack of sleep each night. But, so that was just the main thing. Okay. So first thing, and where I was going with that was, again, first, as you're booking your cruise, making sure that you're looking into all of these things. I looked into where we were going, the destination. I looked into the room, thought it was a good area, but now I understand no more below anything that is not just rooms above us. And then two, looking into the fact that, hey, if this is a smaller cruise ship, how could this setup be? Because again, we were used to the larger ships. So that is something to look into. All right. So we booked the cruise. We were getting on the cruise. We sailed out of Tampa, and sailing out of Tampa was different. We had usually sailed out from other areas. Well, let me rephrase. We sailed out of Tampa back with Norwegian. That was many years ago. And at that time, we didn't drive our own vehicle. So we rented a vehicle, things like that. And then we met our best friends there. And they at their place, because they lived there, they dropped us off at the cruise ship terminal, and then we rented a car back, which is what we're probably going to do again next time. And I only say that because, and I thank God we were covered, but when we got back, multiple vehicles had been broken into in that garage, literally one right across from us. And I thank God, that our vehicle was not vandalized and broken into, but my heart went out to those who had their vehicles broken into. And when I say multiple people had their vehicles broken into. And so this was at the Tampa parking port right there. So just be mindful, and just moving forward, we decided, if we're going to cruise out of Tampa, we're going to do what we did before. Just go ahead, rent a vehicle, drop it off there. We always rent from the airports. If we have to rent a vehicle, drop it off at the airport and get a ride to, the port. And that is the way we will look to do it moving forward. And that's the recommendation that I give to you all. And, we don't operate in fear, but it's unfortunate. And after speaking with the police who was working with the vehicle across from us, he said it's unfortunate, but it just happened a few weeks prior. And you have these, he said it was juveniles. The actual parking garage is not monitored at night. There's no one there. And so they go in, they keep doing it over and over. It's not something that unfortunately has been stopped. But, what can they do until the actual parking garage people put some security measures in place? And that was a recommendation that I did to them, in my review, because they did send a survey out about the parking garage. And it's very unfortunate. So I know what we'll do moving forward. But anyway, so those are the things you want to be mindful of. Where you're going to park if you're going to drive your own vehicle. If you're flying in, of course, that's something different. You're going to get transported there and so forth. Now, so that's what we did. Cruise out of Tampa onto the cruise ship. Now, when I tell you it was a great process. I mean, maybe because it was a smaller ship this time, but previously with the larger ships, it takes a little more time, but this time it didn't. And we had a suite this time too. And that's the great thing about Royal Caribbean. Not sure about any others. We didn't have a suite when we were cruising with Norwegian, but you have a sign of somebody waiting who can move you right to priority check-in when you have a suite or you have the above priority status. So we were excited about that. We got right on through, right on the cruise ship, went to our little check-in, spot to make sure we do the safety drills and so forth. And we were ready to go, went straight to our rooms. And for us personally, we always take our own items with us. Yes, just call me the person who doesn't trust everybody. And so this just, when it comes to that, my luggage is not going to just sit for forever and I'm out, having a good time in the water already. No, if I can carry my own luggage, then you're going to come right with me. And the great thing is, I don't know about other cruise lines, because with Norwegian, at that time we got there later, so we just went straight to our room. But for Royal Caribbean, you can go into your room after 1 o'clock. And so we just made sure we chose the time, to show up and do our safety briefing at 1. So we were like, perfect. Our keys will be at the door and we're ready to go in. And so that's what we do. We just go right ahead, straight to our room, take everything in and head back out like everybody else to get ready for the sail away party. And so we head to the Windjammer, get food, and then have fun. Windjammer is the same place on every cruise line for Royal Caribbean. And that is just the area where all of the, buffet style food is located. And I must say, for it to be a smaller cruise ship, I'm going to get into the food in a minute, but the food was delicious. All right. I'll come back. Now, here we are. We've gone ahead, checked our room, and we didn't just run out. All right. We are those people who always go behind whoever cleaned it, because we do understand that this cruise ship just got here a few hours prior and people, were just in this room. So we go through and we, of course, anoint the room. I take my anointing oil and we anoint the room anywhere we go and we pray. And then we go ahead and start to wiping. All right. We wipe down with wipes. We take our Lysol spray and we get to cleaning. And because it's a balcony room, yes, we are opening up the door. So the balcony room door is open to help get any excess, smells out as it relates to the spraying and the wiping and the cleaning. And I take gloves. Okay. It's 2025. Great people. All right. So we did all of that, got all of our stuff out of our suitcases. And like I said, we headed back out to find out what else we can go ahead and do and have fun. And so my husband had the app. I have the app. We're looking at all activities. And when I say we took advantage of every activity that we could, we absolutely did. We had a great time. And shout out to the cruise director. One thing I must say is that, and maybe we just missed it on our previous cruises, but I don't recall who the cruise directors were. This cruise, maybe because it was a smaller cruise ship or what have you, but we know her, Caroline. She's our cruise director, and she was everywhere doing an absolute amazing job. When I say she did a great job, she deserved every dime that Royal Caribbean is giving her and more. And so excellent, Caroline. If you ever hear this, maybe not, if anybody hears it, knows Enchantment of the Seas, she's on there. Okay. Great job. She, of course, led the different, events, even the production shows that were done. She did a really, really good job. So kudos to her. But overall, we got out there, got to seeing what was going on. Now moving into the food aspect. And so next week, I'm going to talk about a few other things behind the scenes and back, behind the scenes, things that we were able to be a part of. But the food, I do want to go ahead and talk about here. Great people. Okay. We know on the cruise ships and even Norwegian, everybody has this big area where you go into and there's food galore, from every ethnic group under the sun. The main and consistent or constant foods that you saw were, of course, your American foods, such as hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries, what was supposed to be mac and cheese, and then you always had food from the Asian culture. There was always some sort of fried rice. There was always some sort of chicken that was there, from the Asian culture. And then from the Indian culture, there was always something there from the Indian culture as well. I noticed that those are the main three things that we saw all the time. Okay. Now, we know there's a theme. Every night is the theme of some sort. And so they try to stick with whatever the theme is for the ship with the food as well. Okay. So we had an Italian night, we had an Asian night, we had a Caribbean night. And that Caribbean night, I got to put it right here. Great people. I don't recall having oxtails on the previous cruises when they did Caribbean night, but whoever the executive chef was or the sous chef working with this executive chef, they must have come from the islands. That's all I got to say, because the oxtails, the oxtails. I don't eat oxtails often, but when I do, I'm having to pay for it. And I know I paid for it with this cruise, but it was all I wanted to eat that day. All right. And they were tender and they were just seasoned just right. I don't like a lot of seasoning. So, that however you want to say it, it was perfect, seasoned to my palate. And they had the rice and the gravy was with it. Yes, I had enough and all I wanted. It was delicious. Now, back to the food. I did not gain a pound either. So I just want you all to know that there is a way to cruise and still not gain weight and enjoy the food that's there. And when I say I enjoyed the food, I taste everything. Have you all ever heard of the word moderation? I'm excited, as you all can see on this actual one. Moderation. That was what I took into consideration the entire cruise. When you go, you don't have to fill up the entire spoon. Just get a little bit. Taste it. If you want to have a little bit more of that one, then go for it. Just don't get a little bit more of anything else that's so, salty or in excess. It was delicious. I taste everything I wanted to taste. There you go. Moderation. All right. And we worked out. We went to the gym. If you can get a hairstyle, great ladies, we talked about hot hair the other week. Get a hairstyle that's going to help you. I sweat from a ray of sun being on me. Okay. Those are the genes that I was blessed with. I sweat if you look at me like you're hot and I'm hot. Okay. I sweat from my scalp. It starts there and it moves on down. So I had to make sure I had a hairstyle that was going to allow for me to work out and still keep something to maintain, So thank God, I was able to do that. But you can work out, walk the ship, just our continual walking. Even when we got off at each one of the areas in the different countries, we did a lot of walking. And so, that was a plus. Just staying active the entire time can help. And I am so grateful to God that I was able to enjoy all that I did and not gain any weight. And so I'm so, hey, we all know we're grateful for that, right? So that was my food chronicles, enjoy that, Cruise Chronicles about food, this part about food. And so we've discussed the process of getting prepared, making sure you're choosing the right cruise ship, making sure you're choosing where your room is, and of course, making sure that you are mindful of where you're parking. And then, of course, making sure that, once you're on the cruise ship, some of the things that we look to do, of course, and again, we don't usually, have our luggage checked. We just take it straight onto the room, clean our room, and enjoy the cruise for the rest of the cruise. And then, of course, being mindful of the food. Now, and then there's different areas. So there are areas, I just want to say before I end this here, that you have to pay for. And, we did not this time go into any areas that we had to pay for, the restaurants that, are considered to be premium or, upgraded type restaurants. We didn't do any this time around. It's just me and my husband. So we're like, no, we didn't want that. We just enjoyed what's called my time dining, where you can choose the time that you go to eat. Or if you didn't get my time, which I'm honest, we didn't get my time dining this time. So we were chosen the time at 5 p.m., which is perfect because every day at home we eat around 5 p.m. to 6. So that was great. It just worked out. And so, we had our own table that was ours every time we went. We had our own, waitresses. Every time you get to know them, you get to know where they're from. One was from Thailand, one was from the Philippines, and I've been to the Philippines, so I had the opportunity to speak in Tagalog with her. So that was amazing, and just understanding, their culture and talking to them. So that was just great, and getting to know them. And so again, we had our table that was assigned to us every time. If we weren't going to be there for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, we would let them know. So we went into that area. And then the other times we were in the Windjammer. You also can stop by the little cafes that they might have that, you can get free food. There's a Starbucks that you have to pay for on every cruise ship pretty much. But then there's foods and snacks at those areas that you don't have to pay for, because it's all included in the cruise ship. So no extra money is paid out to that. So just understanding that overall, food wise, there's a plethora of food, right? And even the packages. I haven't even mentioned the packages. They have drink packages, whether it's in water packages. We always purchase the water. So they have our water in their room when we come, because that's all we pretty much drink. The boys would always get the cups where you can get the sodas unlimited, and that's the drink packages. If you drink alcohol, which we do not, and I don't recommend, but listen, the people were peopling with their drinks. Okay. I don't know how they do it, but they did. And thank God we had no incidents or accidents that I was at least aware of or saw. So yeah, but you can buy drink packages. Okay. And you can buy more food. You can buy the food packages that actually include, you going to these different restaurants as well. Just do it in advance. So, but we didn't do any of those. We just got our water, and it was in the room, delivered to us and ready to go when we got there. And then other than that, that was that. We had our excursion, which I'll talk about next week, that we purchased in advance. I do recommend purchasing these things in advance, because once you're on the ship, it costs more. All right. So this is Melisia Talks, where we talk all things uniquely you, Summer Sizzle Edition, Cruise Chronicles, great people. I am back from my 20th year anniversary cruise with my husband, and we had an amazing time. Thank you, Lord. All right. So until next time, when we conclude this Chronicle series of the cruising, I will talk to you then. Bye.